Hey everybody, welcome back to the channel. Hope everybody's having a wonderful 4th of July weekend. Today we're going to be taking a look at the breakdown of the very first song that I ever mixed. This is Falling Away from my band Awakening Force. Let's get into it. Alright, so now we are actually in Studio One checking out the Falling Away session. So let's put on the studio headphones and let's get to it. Let's kind of talk about the process of recording all this and the session. The session is set up really clean, as you can see. I've got everything in groups. I really enjoy having all of my stuff just super nice and organized. So you can see there's a group for guitars, a group for the DI tracks, which is super important. We got the bass, drums, the FX and choirs and stuff, which we'll check out here in a little bit. The vocals, and then we have a click track as well, and then some automation. This session was really fun, actually. It took a while to get to where this song was at. I think I recorded this song maybe about 5 or 6 times, and what's interesting is I actually had a hard drive issue at the time when we were recording this record a little over a year ago, and I actually ended up losing the very first recording of this that I had mixed and fully mastered, and so that got lost on my hard drive, and I had to redo everything all over again. So this is the culmination of having to redo all of that stuff. So that was fun, but jumping into the session, so the way I approach this is how I actually mixed the song. So we're going to kind of talk through piece by piece on how I did it. So this was my very first project mixing and mastering. So I just kind of dove in head first with this project, and it was really fun to tackle, learned so much throughout. But yeah, so I started with drums, and the way we did this was we actually recorded these live. So once we had those takes, let me find the actual. So what I'm going to do here is I'm going to take out all of the sampling. Okay, well, it looks like, okay, there we go. Overheads and a room mic. So what's interesting about this project, at least this song, is there's no toms anywhere. It was all kick, snare, and cymbals. So we didn't have any tom tracks, which was really nice. So let's listen to the raw drums, and I'll actually take off all of the processing on the drums. And this is what the drums sounded like completely bare. Pretty crappy, right? They didn't sound great. But now if we turn on the post-processing, and we'll just turn the processing on for just that stuff. Now you can see it sounds pretty good. Now let's kick in the sampling. So what we're doing as far as samples go is I'm adding in a sub-kick. So if we just solo that, you can kind of hear what that's doing. It's really just it's beefing up that low end, basically, is what it's doing. And so we have that, and then I've got some snare samples in here. Help beef out the snare sound. We also have what's called a snare bomb, which is really fun. This happens the most at the end of the song, but you can hear the normal snare tone, and then I'll bring in the snare bomb. There's the normal snare tone. Now let's bring in the snare bomb. Here we go. Whew. So it sounds kind of jarring on its own, but when you throw it in the mix, you get this. Here we go. You can really see how much that brings out and emphasizes the snare. So that's pretty cool. So that's how we did drums. So all the shells were recorded. Everything was recorded real. But we sampled over the kick drum and the snare. The overheads are real. We just took those and used 2 SM58s, I believe, and then took off the covers. Not that that really does anything. I don't know. I just thought it looked cool. So that's what we used for cymbals. Sounds pretty decent. Obviously, it could be better with better mics, but yeah, that's the drums. So let's listen to the drums in full. So that's kind of what it sounds like. Let's go to the bass, because this is how I would approach this next. So this was interesting. So I haven't done any other mixes like this. The only mixes I did were this record like this, as far as bass goes. The other ones, I've changed up my approach wildly, but it worked for here, and it was kind of cool. So I don't know where I found this technique, but I found it somewhere. Like I said, I don't use it anymore, but basically what we did was we had a bass centered. You can see I have 6 bass tracks. 3 for the distorted bass, and then 3 for the clean bass. So we had the center, and then we had the left and rights. So you can see it's really like, it sounds like there's just a lot of high-end cut, which is, at the time, I kind of didn't really know all what I was doing because it was my first mix. And so the bass sounds really deep. It works in the mix, but it sounds really deep, almost muddy. So if I could go back, I would go back and change that. I've got all the DI tracks, but maybe I'll make that a series, going and remixing Falling Away. And then we have one for the clean bass too. This is for like the verses. So that's the clean bass. So that's kind of how I had approached it. And if we go to the actual mix, you could see everything's the same on all of these, which might have been my first mistake. But so we start out with an EQ, and you can see this is doing a extensive amount of stuff that I don't really want to get into too in depth. But basically, we're boosting low end, cutting a lot of the mid range, which hindsight I probably would have pulled that mid range up a little bit. Have a wild cut here right at like 1.9K kilohertz, and then a huge cut on the top end, which, why I did that, I don't know. Normally, probably shouldn't do that, but I did it. And then we just have the CLA 76 compressor on here just to squeeze that bass so it's all consistent, and you're not really getting some dropout with the notes. So that's the same with all these channels. It's all the same. So that's how we did bass. Let's go to the guitar tracks. How we recorded this was we did 2 rhythms, just a left and right, panned. We have a clean guitar, and then we have 2 lead guitar tracks, and then a guitar solo track. So the rhythm guitar sounds like this. And then here's the lead guitar. Pretty cool. The clean guitar. So all of these have got DI tracks, as I've said before. You can see right there. And you want those DI tracks because you really want to make sure, like I've said before, that you have a safety, and the DI track just allows you. I'll actually play them for you. They're not super loud, so it might be a little quiet. But you play these, or you record these, just in case you need to go change sounds, which I ended up liking and enjoying the sounds. I just recorded straight out of my Axe FX, so all the tones from the record are actually in my live rig, because it's all running through the same processor. So that's pretty cool. So that's how we did guitars, and as far as EQ on these, you know, they're just panned. We got some automation going on to kind of bring them up at certain spots. This is kind of what the EQ pattern looks like. Cutting a good amount of the low end, and then a good amount of this muddy, like 300 range, and then just some slight cuts at like 2K and 3K, and just a roll off on the high end too. The tone was just a little too high-endy for, but I think that sounds pretty cool. So those are how we did guitars. And if we go to the effects and the choir step, this is kind of cool. These are what's called ghost bells, and this is by a company called Labs. It's what they sound like. This is the signature kind of sound from Falling Away. Pretty cool. So as far as, this is like the post-production effects area. So we've got this going on, and this is how I would approach it. Drums, bass, guitars, then I go to post-production effects. So it's kind of backwards as far as like, there's no vocals yet, but that's okay. The actual effects we've got on here are a reverse swelled cymbal. We've got an 808 sub drop, and then we also have a 808 bass sub reverse drop thingy majingy. So let's listen to these. That's what it sounds like. And that's what most of the drops on the song sound like. So you have that build up, and then you have that big low end drop. Over here, kind of sort of the same thing, except we also have a track called Explode. And that is just a huge, got some strings too, that sound very fake, which that was the point. But we also have a track called Explode on here, and that is just basically a huge boom. So you'll hear that here in just a second. So that's what's there, and that leads into the final chorus that then will lead us eventually out into this extended subdrop to the end of the song. So pretty cool. That is all the post-production effects. As far as EQ on those, actually, let's talk about that because they kind of all sit. The swells, I just took out a lot of the low end, unless it was the subdrop swell, unless, you know, I just took the high end cut all the way down. For the subdrops, again, it was just the high end. Let's talk about vocals now. Let's talk about my vocals. So we've got 2 vocals. Here is my vocals soloed. See, here we've got harmonies in there, which is really cool. You don't really hear those in the song too much, but it just gives a little bit more depth, and it sounds really cool. So as far as processing, so I've got a main lead vocal track for the verse, and then in the choruses, I'm doing a chorus track and then a chorus dub track. And then the harmonies, we're doing a harmony 1 and a harmony 2 as well. So the main vocal verse, I've got Melodyne on there, so we can get that pitch perfect. Then I have a compressor. This one we've got the Bluey CLA-76, and this is just kind of compressed those vocals down, raising the level a little bit. And then we've got 3 EQs. So we've got 1 for the main kind of shaping, and then 2 for the surgical EQ, as I like to call it. So the main shaping, we're doing quite a lot here, as you can see, cutting around the 400 hertz range, doing a pretty significant cut for the low end, taking away that muddiness in the low mids. And then we're doing some cuts around the 1K area and like 1.8K right there, and then just a little bit of a top cut. And that's kind of shaping the mic. And then we go into the surgical EQs, which I just took 1. We cut a little bit from like the 800 range, and then a little bit up here too on the 7.6K. And then we do a little bit more work here in like 2.7, 1.3, and this 800 range. Kind of cutting some more. I found that with the processing, you'll actually see in a second. So we're running this into a de-esser as well, and we're running this into an effects channel, which has a delay and a reverb. And I found when adding that, it took the vocals, it made them kind of harsh. And so we went in and kind of dug a lot of that out. And then it's also running into a master Vox bus, as you can see over here on the side. And this has some more surgical EQs for the entire vocals as a whole. And then it has something called the La Petite. Sorry, I messed that up. La Petite, I am pretty illiterate. I'm not very literate. I barely passed English. So, but we've got the La Petite plugin. This one was kind of cool. It was free, and basically you can kind of hear what it's doing. So it's off, now it's on. Now it's off. Now it's on. So you can see it really takes the vocal from, with all the EQ we did, it was like very like boxy and kind of like almost underwatery sounding, and it just raises it and puts it right in front of your face. So it sounds really cool. And then this is kind of all the same. There's these kind of all have the same processing as far as, I mean, there's some different kind of EQ moves that's done for like the chorus, as you can see here. Like this is what the chorus EQ looks like. The harmonies are a little different. We actually added a chorus on it, so it had that like kind of chorusy sound. So let me kill all these real quick. You're always running farther. That's what it sounded like. So pretty cool. So that is all of our vocals from me, kind of what's going on there. And then our vocals for our female singer. You're always running farther. So we have 3 tracks. We've got a chorus for her. We've got just a normal main chorus. And then we have 2 left and right chorus dubs that are panned to their respective locations, and these sound really good. They were pretty cool, and they mix really well with the male vocals, which are my vocals. So let's listen to this chorus. This is cool because you get to listen to this completely dry with no instruments. Here's the vocals completely dry. You can kind of hear how they all interconnect. I'm always trying harder. You're always running far. tracks. There we go. Awesome, awesome stuff. The process for recording vocals was really interesting because I'm very much a perfectionist to like an extreme point of where nothing's like ever good enough. So I recorded these vocals, no joke, probably about 25 different times. The entire song, 25 different times. And this is over the course of like 2 months. Like I would record the entire song, do all the tracks, do like a crap ton of tracks for every single vocal line. And then I would go in and realize I didn't like it. And I would start the process all over again. That happened like 25 times. No joke. We set up a little booth like in my closet, which you can probably see on a video about right here. And yeah, we recorded everything, and I went back and back and back and back and back. And then finally I got to a point where I really enjoyed the vocals, and I was like, that's the one. So yeah. So that was kind of the process for the vocals. It was very interesting, engineering and mixing and mastering the entire record. Really fun experience. It really gave us a lot of creative leeway and creative freedom with how we wanted to put things together. Whew! All right. Hopefully you guys enjoyed the video. Thank you guys for tuning in. Let me know in the comments down below what you guys want to see next. You guys want to see a Falling Away mix breakdown on a live stream where I take it and I really dissect it and show you guys exactly what I did with everything, and that'll be a lot longer than this video. Or would you like me to remix the song in how I would do it today? Let me know in the comments below. Remember to hit that like button, that subscribe button, and the bell notification so you get notified on every single video that I upload. Thank you guys for tuning in. I'll see you on the next video.